This week, one of the most absurd wastes of taxpayer dollars came from the national broadcaster, which, despite always crying poor about supposed tax cuts, spent $130,000 paying the personal defamation bill of one of its star journalists. The federal court ordered, as part of a consent judgment in a defamation action, that Four Corners investigative journalist Louise Milligan pay Coalition MP Andrew Laming $79,000 plus legal costs. Now, these defamatory remarks concerned a series of tweets from March 28 this year, in which she suggested Dr. Laming had taken a photo of a woman, quote, under her skirt, at a Brisbane business in 2019. The woman concerned made a complaint to Queensland Police this year, which, following their investigation, determined there was, quote, no evidence to indicate a criminal offence. Documents filed by Laming's counsel allege Milligan's tweets were sensational, accusatory, and had a, quote, spiteful tone. Those tweets have since been deleted. Now, bear in mind, the ABC, unlike Milligan, was not a respondent to the proceedings. Milligan was not acting in an official capacity when she sent those tweets, which came from her private account. You might be wondering why the ABC is using your money to pay damages for her reckless conduct. If so, you weren't the only one. This is what legal commentators had to say.
I personally can't see what is so particular or exceptional about someone who is using a private tweet account to make a comment about someone that's defamatory. Why on earth would they pay her defamation damages? I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
The ABC released a statement defending its decision to cover the costs, claiming the situation was caused by, quote, particular and exceptional circumstances. The ABC refused to elaborate on what exactly those exceptional circumstances were, and James Valentine, who is filling in for Media Watch presenter Paul Barry, attempted to make light of the situation with this bizarre taxpayer-funded sketch.
Who says the ABC's short of money? I'm getting thousands to do this show after I knock Barry off his bike. And they're forking out a whopping $79,000 plus costs to MP Andrew Laming over a tweet by the ABC's star reporter Louise Milligan. So who said we don't put your money to good use? So what's the verdict in the court of public opinion?
We have got to ask yet again, why is the ABC running a protection racket for journalist Louise Milligan?
Good question. Let's hope that racket extends to all of us. I've got some stupid tweets to send out this afternoon.
What a ridiculous way to talk about such a serious issue. The incident has cost taxpayers more than $130,000, and it is just being passed off as a funny joke. Imagine if a Conservative politician had spent $130,000 of taxpayer funds paying out a defamation claim from an inaccurate tweet. The ABC would quite rightfully be calling for their resignation. The failure by ABC management to clamp down on ABC presenters who compromise the organisation with partisan and inaccurate posts on social media has long been an issue. And judging by Managing Director David Anderson's explanation as to what the organisation is doing to rectify this, it's clear management has got no idea about how to stop it.
Herein lies the problem, Senator, that you're pointing out, that when somebody has a personal social media account, the ABC is not responsible for the material that they publish.
It seems like a totally artificial distinction to say these are personal accounts.
They are personal accounts. That's factually what they are. Now that we have this code of conduct and these guidelines, where we issued them late last year, I emailed everyone to make it crystal clear in February of this year, and then in March of this year, I emailed everyone the personal use of social media guidelines. It's not something we are being passive about. It is something that we are actively looking at and pursuing and trying to make very clear that distinction.
So the ABC is not responsible for the material its journalists publish on social media, and it has even warned staff that they will be liable for rogue tweets. So how has an exception been made for Milligan's case? Either taxpayers do not have to foot the bill when the ABC spreads fake news, misinformation and defamatory imputations, or ABC staff should be forced to trick tweeting as they would with publishing a story on the ABC website. Because a tweet is an act of publishing, and it seems reasonable for me to suggest that if we, the public, foot the bill for the legal protection of those tweets, then staff should stop tweeting and trying to be famous. We asked the ABC whether Milligan had special privileges that other journalists do not get, and it declined to comment. And that's almost the worst thing about this whole mess. No transparency, consistency, or humility. Nothing the ABC does is ever wrong, and the public never deserves an explanation. Now, let's bring in the panel. I'm joined by Daily Telegraph political editor James Morrow and author at The Spectator, Australia, Rebecca Weiser. James, let's start with you. What do you make of this whole affair of the ABC paying the legal bills of Louise Milligan?
Well, the whole thing is so bizarre, Jack. I mean, when you start from the very beginning, what is Louise Milligan doing going off on this frolic on Twitter against Andrew Laming in the first place? You know, she has form. You know, they don't call her Louise 7 Milligan for nothing, you know, after what happened with the George Pell case. And then she goes off and she does this. It seems very much a case of there is some sort of special treatment being handed out here. I don't understand what it is or why it is. Chris Merritt had a fascinating column in the Australian today where he said that, you know, the ABC is bound to be a model litigant, and yet the ABC seems to have pushed this thing much further than it should have, to the point now where they're out $200,000 potentially when they could have been out $2,000 in an apology. But Louise Milligan won't apologize, and so by not apologizing, then she comes out, I guess, with, you know, her name unsullied in all of this. But it's very bizarre. I don't know why we are paying for it. It's just doesn't add up, and I really, really hope that the next Senate estimates that the ABC is absolutely grilled about what exactly were these special exceptions that were made for Louise Milligan. Why were they made? Does anybody else get these things? Why can't somebody, you know, who has gone and done wrong be forced to pay from their own money rather than the taxpayers? And just what is going on here at the ABC? It just seems absolutely bizarre, Jack.
Rebecca, it's not the best message to send to ABC staff that you can go rogue, you can defame someone, you can break all the rules that supposedly govern journalists, and the taxpayer will foot the bill, no consequences.
Absolutely, but it just seems to me a perfect example of the partisan nature of the ABC, and clearly you can go rogue so long as you attack a white male conservative or, at a pinch, a white female conservative. I'm sure you'd be let off the hook for that as well. I mean, being Louise Milligan seems to be like that movie love story from the 70s, never having to say you're sorry. And it's just infuriating for the 2 points that James and that you have made. One is transparency. We are not, our money as taxpayers is being spent, but for example, Louise's costs in her legal costs haven't been specified, so we can only estimate whether as taxpayers were up for 130 or for 200,000 or more. I think every dollar that's spent by the tax on behalf of the taxpayer by the ABC should be justified. I mean, that is public money and we deserve that. And we also deserve clarity and consistency in the application of these rules.
Well said. And yeah, I think you make a really good point. It's also the contemptuous way in which they don't want to give us the answers. It's the public's money and the public has a right to know how it's used.